Okay, today we'll start right on top of Memhei 45. Thank Hashem, we're able to learn Torah every day. It's less of a learning. We should have the basic English immediately. And we're learning also for Shlema for my father and for Naftali ben Minuch Bela. Okay, the Mishnah starts off Hanachrim ha'ivdim esaharim esagvais. The non-Jews that worship the mountains and the hills, hein mutarim. Mountains are permissible, mashalei masurim, but the decorations on the mountains, that's all prohibited. Now, the subject, the sentence is a little off. It should say the mountains that are worshipped by the non-Jews. It says the non-Jews that worship the mountains, they are permissible. Who's the subject? Who's the they? Obviously, the mountains, not the non-Jews. It's written in this funny way. Do you see what I'm saying? In English, is it obvious that it's written strange? They clarify it with the. So let me see if the comment here. It says Lav Dafka Nachrim. That doesn't help me. Still, the subject is a little bit off. All right. It doesn't matter to me if it's a non-Jew or not a non-Jew. If non-Jews worship mountains and hills, they are permitted. Oh, derived, okay. I'm just talking about the
if Jews did it.
The halacha would be the same. Okay, if Jews did it, the halacha would be the same. It's just funny to talk about the non-Jews and then say they are. Who's my subject here? Obviously the subject is the mountains, but why does it say Nachrim ha'ivdim? It should say Haharim Hanevad al Yidei Nachrim or something. Hain. Whatever. Okay. Hain mutar mashalem asum. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, leisach min kasev v'zav aleim. Says that you shall not desire the silver and gold that is upon them. Okay. We have a rule that the anything that's not man-made, that's attached to the ground, that's not man-made, cannot become prohibited. So they can't in Utah or something where they have maybe there's some mountains or something. I don't know. Those things cannot be prohibited. The mountain itself can't be prohibited. If there's a church on top, that's a problem that was built. But the mountain itself has to be is not prohibited. In other words, you can go and make use of that mountain. You could grow things on it. You could live on it. All of that. So the mountain could take the rocks from it. Rabbi Yisrael Glili Aimer Elihayim Alaharim, the gods that are upon the mountains. V'loyaharim Elihayim, but not the mountains that are their gods. Elihayim Alagvais, the gods that are on the hills. V'loyagvais Elihayim, but not the hills that are the gods. In other words, the same message, that it has to be only something that's placed there, but not the mountain itself or the hill itself. Why is a tree that was planted for idolatry, why is that prohibited? Because it had human intervention. Anything that had human intervention, and someone planted that would be prohibited. I'm Rabbi Akiva. Akiva says, I will give understanding and decide lefanecha, in front of you. Anytime where you'll find a high mountain or a raised hill, a beitz ranan or a leafy tree, you should know that there is a idol there. And as Rabbi Akiva is saying that based on a pasuk. The pasuk says, "Tachas kol eitz ranan," and underneath every leafy tree. Sounds like it's telling me, just like we said by the mountains, anything that's upon the mountains is usher. Then when you say anything that's under the leafy tree, you mean that anything that's under the tree is usher, but not the tree itself. So comes along Rabbi Kiva and says, so if it's not the tree itself, then why do we say an Asherah, which is a tree of idolatry? Why is that prohibited? He says, no, the pasuk is coming to tell me where to find them. You want to find the idol, you have to look under the tree or on top of the mountain. That's where it's typical to find it. Okay. Let me see if I missed anything in this. We're going to get into Balichayim, quoting this, if it's a live animal. Yeah.
Just following that idea of consecration. It doesn't happen.
No, that's something else. Something else. Because here we're talking about things that are on the ground. There's another concept where you don't have consecration unless it's you, unless it's actually worship. Are you asking that maybe the things that are on the mountains should not be prohibited because they didn't worship the decoration?
Last week we had also the idea that they couldn't concentrate things like for idol worship. They didn't have that.
They don't have that. That's true. That's true. But here the things are become attached to it. They're putting it on it. Someone's asking that there's only consecration for kedusha. It can only be makdash something for the base of Mikdash, but you can't be makdash something for an idol. I guess what he's asking is that, so then why is the decorations on the mountains prohibited? I think because once it's attached to the idol, I think that's different. The attachments on the idol become prohibited. The person would say, I'm going to use this for the idol, it would still be permitted until it was actually brought, unless it was an offering. An offering is different. Okay. Gemara says like this: Rabbi Yossi Aglili and Tanakama. We had two opinions in the Mishnah. One opinion was that we use the verse "Leisachmin kesav v'zav aleim." You shouldn't desire the silver and gold that's on it, which means only what's upon it becomes usher, but the mountain itself is permissible. And then we had Rabbi Yossi Aglili that says "Aleheyam alaharim," the God that's on the mountain, but not the mountain itself. But it comes out that they both have the same opinion, that the mountain is permissible and what's on it is prohibited. So Haina Tanakam, it's the same opinion. Well, Amar Rami Bar Chama Amar Reish Lakish. Okay. Rami Bar Chama says in the name of Reish Lakish, and it's interesting because Reish Lakish was in Eretz Yisrael. Rami Bar Chama was in Bavel. That's an interesting combination. It says, Tzipoi har kahar, ikabinayo. We say, the question is, if we cover the mountain with some sort of gold or something, that's the difference between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yossi. So Tanakama said, Tzipay har kahar. Tanakama said, Tzipay har ena kahar. Umitzar. The Tanakama said that the mountain itself is permissible to make use of, but the covering of the mountain is not permissible to make use of. So in other words, the covering of the mountain, if let's say you throw some decorations, some silver or gold on over the mountain, so then that would be prohibited, not like the mountain which is permissible. Rabbi Seglu no, Rabbi Seglu says it's the same thing. If it's covering the mountain, then it becomes, if the mountain itself is not prohibited, then the covering itself shouldn't be prohibited. We don't consider the mountain an idol. And so what's secondary to the mountain also can't be the idol. It's secondary to the mountain, it's bottled to the mountain. The mountain is not an idol. It's not an idol. So what did the pasuk mean when it says the God that's on the mountain? It's talking about something that's not attached to the mountain. Once you attach it to the mountain, like you put it on as a plate, so then that would be permissible according to Rabbi Yossi Glili. Okay, that's Rami Bar Chama's shot in the name of Rish Lakish. Rav Sheshes says no. The Machlekes Tanakama And Rabbi Yossi Aglili is a little different. It says the Kuli al Matzipe Hareinikar. Everyone holds that the plating on the mountain is going to be prohibited. It's not like the mountain which is permissible. Over here, what's going to come out as a machlekes regarding a tree that was planted innocently, and then they decided to worship it. So Tanakama Sabri Ilin Shnatul B'Seif Avdu is mutter. Tanakama holds that if it was planted for innocent reasons, and then afterwards he decided to worship it, it's still mutter. Why? Because there was no human intervention in making it into an idol when they planted it, but that wasn't an idol. We're on 45b, right on the top. Glili Savar Ilin Shnatul B'Seif Avdu is Aser. Glili holds that a tree that was planted innocently, just as a tree, and later on they decided that they're going to worship it, that becomes Aser. Okay. Umar says, Mimai, where did you extract this from the Machlekes, Tanakam, and Rabbi Yossi Aglili? And as we're coming out, there has to be a Machlekes because there's two opinions. But he came up with this funny Machlekes about a tree that was planted. Where in Rabbi Yossi Aglili did you notice that there was any reference to this tree? It says Midiktani Seifa. It says you can see this from the later part of Rabbi Yossi Aglili. It says Mepnema Ashera Asura. Why is the Mishnah says, why is the Asherah prohibited? If what's on the mountain, if the mountain is, we derive from the pasuk that says what's upon the mountain is aser, but not the mountain itself. So also we have a pasuk what's under the tree is aser, but not the tree itself. So it says, so why is the tree aser? We say the tree is aser because it was human intervention. Anything that has human intervention is going to be prohibited. What are you coming to include? Must be you're coming to include something. Must be a chiddush. Must be saying coming to include a tree that was planted for innocent reasons, and then afterwards it was worshipped. Coming to tell me that's considered human intervention, even though it wasn't to become an idol intervention, but because it was planted at one point. So the mountains were not man-made at any point. But the tree was at one point planted. Also, was those coconuts that roll up on the island.
They don't have any special law specific to this tree, this a common idol. Like let's say that they do plant it innocently. It's like a stumbling block. Like I guess it was like common practice to worship this.
What are you asking? You're asking that there should be a more clear verse that says that the tree is prohibited. We have a verse that says that you have to burn down cut down their Asherah trees and burn down their Asherah trees. We have verses that say that. Here we're discussing, this in the Mishnah. It seems like we're understanding that there's a contradiction. On the one hand, we say that it's only what's under the tree, and on the other hand, we have a verse that says that you have to destroy the tree. So we explain that the tree was planted. That's why, in some cases, only what's under the tree, because the tree wasn't planted for idolatry. And now comes along Rabbi Yossi Aglili and says that if at any point the tree is worshipped, then we say that that's considered a tree of idolatry.
This innocent plant. Even if they don't worship it, it's not their intention. They plant it and walk away. Someone else.
Yeah, but that's no. First of all, no one else can make your item into an idol, right? No, that's the rule. Because if you have an item, no one, people bowing down to your car isn't going to make it into a prohibited, right? Oh, if it's ownerless, not yours, so then it could become an idol. But it doesn't. I'm not sure. You're assuming that Asherah is a certain specific type of tree, and that type of tree is the idol. I'm not sure if that's how it works. I don't know if it's a specific type of tree.
Or even if they don't worship the tree like directly, but they would use it whatever way that they would worship.
Yeah, but I assume that tree was not just an idol tree. I'm assuming that the tree was a tree like there's a lot of oak trees. Every once in a while, they took an oak tree and they worshipped it, but that doesn't mean that all oak trees are idol trees. I don't know. Daniel, do you know anything else about the Asherah trees? Is it a specific type of tree, or is it just a tree that they decided they were going to worship?
No, I actually was going to ask you that exact question.
I wonder if the Koran would say, it's like a picture of the Asherah tree is this type of tree that. So we're holding 45. A tree that is an idol. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't mean that it's that tree is always. Let's see. Asherah. They just say it's prohibited to drive benefit from a tree that was planted for the sake of idol worship, even if it was not actually worshipped. All right. No picture over here of a specific type of tree. All right. Well, so we came up with the machlekes between Tanakam and Rabbi Yossi regarding trees that were planted innocently and were later on worshipped. Now the Gemara says, okay, now we throw in another opinion. We had in the Mishnah, we had the opinion of the Tanakama, Rabbi Yossi Aglili, and also Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva, I'm not sure where Rabbi Akiva comes in to add or to argue, but he just says that the pasuk is telling me where to find it. Maybe I guess Rabbi Akiva is telling me, don't be concerned about the contradiction in the verses. The one says that the tree is permissible. The other one says the tree is prohibited. The verse that says the tree is permissible is because it's just telling you where to find the idol, where to look for it. But obviously, a tree that's worshipped would be prohibited. Now the Gemara says that the Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda agrees with Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Daniel's. So take a look. The Asherah tree is not a specific species of tree, but rather a cultic symbol. Sacred tree of wooden pole associated with the Canaanite goddess Asherah, is believed to be fertile goddess. It's the consort of the god Baal. Okay, ChatGPT. So it's not a specific type of tree according to that. Okay. It just means I think it was associated with plenty, yeah, right? Baal also was associated with plenty. Baal would be the husband, and Asherah would be the wife, the goddess, the god and goddess, the idolatry. Yeah. So Rabbi Yossi Aglili would agree with this. The Tanya was taught in the Brisa. Rabbi Yossi Aglili holds it. Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda would agree. Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda Aimer Mitaysh Nemar Lehem Alaharim V'Leharim Elehayim. It says the gods that are on the mountain and not the mountain. That's their god. Elehayim Alagvais V'Legvais Elehayim. Talking about destroying the god that's on the hill and not the god that's the hill. Shemei Ani. I would understand from this. Tachas Kol Yitzranan. Would understand from this that underneath any leafy tree, ranan means like moist, means a leafy tree. Elihayim v'lei ranan elihayim. It means under the tree is the god, but not the tree itself. Not the tree itself. That's the god. The tree itself you don't have to destroy. So Talmud Laimar, the pasuk says, "Vashreim tisram beish." You do have to destroy it. Gemara says, the Brisa says, "El tachas kol yisrael namli." So why do you tell me then, underneath the tree, you destroy it? You have to destroy the tree itself. It says, Rabbi Akiva, so that's coming to teach me what Rabbi Akiva said, that you have to look under the tree to find the idol. Rabbi Akiva, ani oivin v'adon lefenecha kol makom shata moitzi har gavaya, to give a nasa, Okay. How do we know that Rabbi Yehuda holds that a tree that was planted innocently and afterwards worshipped is permissible? So Rashi over here says that if he would hold that a tree that was planted and afterwards worshipped would be permissible, then he should be telling me that Veloy Eitz Rana, he would be teaching me that the tree that underneath the tree is prohibited, but the tree itself is permissible, would be talking about that type of tree where it was planted innocently and afterwards was worshipped, that tree is permissible. But he didn't do that. He told me that it's coming to teach me what Rabbi Akiva says. But the tree itself would be prohibited even if it was planted innocently. Because he could have resolved the contradiction in a different way without using Rabbi Akiva. He could have said one is talking about a tree that was planted for idolatry and one is talking about a tree that was only worshipped after it was planted. And he didn't do that. So it's coming to teach me that he would agree with Rabbi Yossi Glili that both of those types of trees are prohibited. So what does he do with the one pasuk that says that you don't have to destroy the tree? Well, that's Rabbi Akiva. That's telling me that's telling me where to look for the idol. No. We have Rabbi Yossi Glili and Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda. Could be. Rabbanan, according to the Rabbanan that say, Rabbanan held that a tree that was planted and later on worshipped, permissible. What do they do with the pasuk of Ashrem Tisrafim Beish? What do you mean? That's talking about the first type of tree. Oh, that's what the Gemara answers. It's talking about a tree that was planted for idolatry. Okay, that was easy. Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda nami mi bailei lachi. But Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda also needs the pasuk to teach me that a tree that was planted for idolatry should be prohibited. Where says Achinami? You're right. So then how does he know the other type of tree? Tree that was planted innocently and later on worshipped. He says, well, and it says that you have to chop down the tree. One pasuk says you have to burn the tree, one pasuk says you have to chop down the tree. When you chop down the tree, the bottom of the tree is still there. What is the bottom of the tree still there? What's the type of tree that when you chop it down, it's prohibited, but the base of the tree is permissible? It's talking about a tree that was planted and later on it was worshipped. It means the base of the tree was never prohibited. It was only what grew later became prohibited. That's why the bottom of the tree is permissible. You have to chop it down. There's a mark where it grew from there on after it started to be worshipped. So it grows wider. I don't know how you do that, but okay. But he brought it from Hashem Tisrafim Beish. That's where he learned it from. That says that the idolatrous tree you have to burn in fire. That's the source for the tree that was planted innocently and then worshipped. It should be the opposite. It should be that's the source of a tree that was planted for idolatry you have to burn. The one that was planted innocently and later worshipped should be the tree you chop down. Why do you bring the other pasuk? The Gemara says, Ilulei Nemer Ka'amar. What that means is that if it didn't say this pasuk, then I would learn it from the other pasuk. Ilulei Nemer Tisrafim Beish. If it didn't say the pasuk of you have to burn it in fire, then I would have thought that the tree that you chopped down is talking about that it was planted for that. But hashta deksiv Hashem Tisrafim Beish, once it says that you have to burn down the tree of idolatry, so then I know that it's talking about the tree that was planted for idolatry. Then what I have remaining is the tree that you chopped down is for the tree that was planted innocently and later worshipped. That's the tree that you chopped down. The verses now fit. If Elul Lai Nemar is an interesting concept. Saying, if it wouldn't have said this, then I would have learned it from that, or I would have thought differently. And I would have thought it's permissible. Comes along the pasuk to tell me that it's also said. It's funny that it's saying that if not for this pasuk, then So, and I guess what it's saying is that if not for the pasuk of Asherayim Tisrafim Be'esh, then I wouldn't have known what I'm trying to tell you. So even though this pasuk isn't talking about what I'm telling you, but this pasuk helps me understand the other verse is what I'm telling you. So ultimately, this pasuk helps me. I have two verses. I have one that says the idolatrous tree you have to burn. I have another pasuk that says idolatrous tree you have to chop down. One is talking about where it was planted for idolatry. One is talking about that it was worshipped later. So when it wants to tell me that it was worshipped later, you have to destroy it. It tells me that idolatrous tree you have to burn. The Gemara says no, you got it wrong. That's the pasuk. You should have said that's one you chopped down. So the Gemara explains that if not for the pasuk of that the idolatry you have to burn, then I wouldn't have known that the one that you chopped down is talking about the one that was worshipped later. I would have thought that that's talking about the one that was worshipped initially. So that pasuk is also ultimately telling me what this pasuk is teaching. Okay. Rabbanan, according to the sages, that they said that you don't have to chop down a tree that was worshipped later, right? It doesn't become an idol. So what do they do with the verse that says you have to chop down the tree? Yeah, that's a good question.
They cut down the tree, then okay, they did true, but they cut down the tree. Then later on, they fall into that like temptation again. Then they have the tree there to worship it. Like,
You think because it grows back?
yeah, like,
I don't know if it grows back. In the giving tree, when the guy cut down the tree, it was just an old stump.
oh, okay. So that's the part that I was
Okay. So, what are we holding now? What do they do with the tree that you chop down? Because they hold that that's permissible if it was planted innocently and then worshipped later. That's look at Rabbi Shua ben Levi. That's used for Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Then Rabbi Shua ben Levi says, it's giving instructions, the priority list to the soldiers that are on their way into the land of Israel. What's our priority here? First thing is, chop down that idol. This may be a war tactic as well. First, just chop it down. Then, that comes first, even before you conquer the land. Then, with a missile, have the missile hit the idol. But then, what about going back to destroy the idol? It says, no, that you'll do later. First, go conquer the land. You'll go back. You'll you'll burn in the idol and all of that. Meanwhile, you got it. You knocked it down. First, knock it down, knock it over. You'll go back after you conquer everything. You'll go back and burn it. The Tani Reb Yosef, because Reb Yosef taught when he taught them as mizbechesim, you should smash their altars, v'hanach, and then you just leave it. V'shibartim as matzevesayim, you should smash their stones, v'hanach, and you just leave it. It says v'hanach sal kedaita, you just leave it. Streifabay, you have to burn it. Rav Huna says, first run, I guess run and conquer, and then you'll come back later and you'll burn it. Yosef Bar Yehuda, Haisvarim. Where does Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda know this concept of that the trees that were worshipped only later you Is he asking Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda that he agrees with Rabbi Yossi Glili? Or is he asking how does he know that it's correct what Rabbi Shua ben Levi said? Let's see what the answer is. It says you should destroy the name of the idol from that place. I guess that means that you have to go back and destroy it. Oh, okay. Because it says that you have to go back to destroy. So it means first you knock it down, and then afterwards you go back and destroy it. It says, right, just do this destroying. The Gemara says, "V'Rabbanan." What do the Rabbanan do that they don't say? They don't learn it like this. So what do they say with the Baratim Hashemam? They have to destroy it a second time. It says, "Zehu lachanas l'shem." That's a special law that you should not speak with praise about an idol. You should give it a derogatory name, a denigrating name, nickname. The Tanya was taught in a brayser. Rabbi Kiva Aimer, I'm sorry, Rabbi Eliezer Aimer. Rabbi Eliezer says, how do you know that if you uproot an idol, that you have to go back and take away the roots? It says that you should destroy its name. It means you have to dig into the ground to have a machine to get rid of the roots, right? You have to go back and get the roots. A stump remover.
So the term is good.
Amalei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says, it already says a double expression that you should surely destroy. So why do we need, you should destroy its name? What does it mean you should destroy its name from that place? It means that you should give it a nickname. Maybe you should give it a nice name, say like beautiful, whatever, or lucky or something. Some Indian, American Indian name. Smoked whitefish, right? So what? You think you're supposed to give it a positive name? Maybe just neutral. The pasuk says, "Shakitz to section of a to savena." No, it should be disgusting and because it's prohibited. Haketzad, give me an example. What is this? Hayukayan, I said, base Galia. Let's say it was the house of the heights. So Kayan, I said, base Karya. You should call it the house of the depths. Ein kol, like all the eyes are upon it, is ein koitz. Say the thorn, an eye with the thorn in it. Okay, you may give it a nickname. That's probably why we say like kratzmach or something instead of kratz means to scratch, like an itch. What is it? Oh.
In the Tanakh itself, there's some places where a person's name has Baal in it. It's changed to Boshet.
Right.
Like,
yeah. What do you do with those people that part of the name was like Ishbaishas or Mephibaishas? That's strange.
yeah, those people. I think their original name was with Baal. There are some places where you have both.
So maybe that's why they switched it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mendel over here says Balabas. Okay. That's embarrassing. Okay. Okay, Tani Tana Kameder Rav Sheshas. The Tana taught in front of Rav Sheshas. Ha'akam ha'idem esaharim esagvayis hemutarim b'avdeim b'sayef. See, this Tana that taught this, he really helps out the Mishnah because I was like bothered by that the subject of the Mishnah didn't discuss the subject. It went straight to it says the non-Jew, the idolater that worships the mountains or the hills, they are permissible. And we said they means the mountains, not the non-Jew. But then this brisa that the Tana was teaching, he says, but those that worship them get punished by the sword. least now I have this. The subject is being discussed. I have what happens to them that worship it. So, okay, that they get killed. Interesting that the what they worshipped is not an idol, but they still worshipped an idol. Right?
no.
What? Yeah, but it's not the kavana. It's they had kavana without any worship. That would be nothing. It's there's a special dispensation for the mountain that we don't say the mountain becomes an idol, even though for everything else, all other purposes, we say he worshipped an idol.
Too hard to obliterate.
Right.
Too hard to obliterate.
Yeah. Although in China, there was a king that he wanted the river, it was like a yellow river or something. He wanted the river to go through. He wanted to take his boat all the way down China. The problem was there was a mountain in the middle. So this is going back a few thousand years. But he had his men move the mountain. They took fire, they put it on it, then they threw ice on it, and it cracked, and it would fall away the cracked rocks. And that's thousands of men and all of that. He moved the mountain, and then he rolled. He floated down the river.
Like thousands of people died.
Okay, so what about the vegetables and seeds? That's different. Over there, because that was planted, so that also is those also become prohibited. Who told you this? Rav Sheshes is telling the Tana that's teaching this. Who told you that the person gets the death penalty? He says, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. Oh, I guess who told you about the vegetables? I guess that's what he's asking. He says that it's even if it was planted innocently, it's Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. It was planted innocently, but afterwards worship, it's aser. Maybe you don't have to learn that those vegetables were planted innocently and later on worshipped. Maybe you could just learn that they were planted for idolatry, and then it's not Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. It's everyone's opinion. It's the Rabbanan's opinion. It says Leisal Kedaitach. It has to be similar to the mountain because we had two clauses of this brisa. One was a mountain and one was vegetables. Obviously, the mountain wasn't made there for an idol. The mountain was made by Hashem. By what's it called? Plate tectonics. Mountain. What is it? What's it called when they
tectonic plates.
Yeah, but when there's a word when they
Pangea. Pangea.
Oh,
Earthquake.
there's a word when it's called when they swoosh together, and then when they separate this.
Pangea.
I know Pangea is the name of the continent. Okay, whatever. There's a word when they separate. There's a word when they come together. The fault is just the crack.
You're learning this is not.
So, yeah, but look, so Barabban, it's like the Dumi Dahar, it has to be similar to the mountains. It wasn't made originally for this. What do they have? Yeah, convergent plates.
Virgin plates.
Convergent plates is forming mountain. Yeah, okay. So also the vegetables weren't planted originally for the idol. They were planted originally innocently, just like mountains form innocently, and only later on they were worshipped. Itmar, you have a statement like this. Avnei har shenidaldlu. Let's say there were boulders from the mountain that were separated from the mountain. The mountain was worshipped. And now you have this, it started to crack off, not by human intervention, it cracked off. So Bnei Reb Chiya Reb Yechon is now machlaitis. Chad Amar Asuros, one says up, prohibited. Karam mutaris. The other one says no, it's permissible. My time demand mutaris. What's the explanation for the one that says that it's permitted? We don't have yet who holds what. We just have Bnei Reb Chia and Reb Yechanan. Reb Chia is a student of Rebbe, and he has sons Yehuda and Chizkiah. So Bnei Reb Chia would be Yehuda and Chizkiah, the sons of Reb Chia that hold this. And then there's Reb Yechanan, who's approximately that generation. He is son's generation. And so he's arguing with him. So what's the reason for the one that says that it's mutaris, that it's permissible? It says kahar, it's just like the mountain. The mountain had no human intervention, and it's permissible. There's no human intervention here. It's permissible. This is 1 second. But the mountain is attached. This is detached. You're missing one of the factors that maybe is the main factor why it's permissible. It says, no, I can prove it to you. I know that an animal, if someone worships an animal, the animal doesn't become prohibited. Something that's alive doesn't become prohibited. So, how do I know that? Rashi explains that because I have a pasuk that says that you can't bring an animal that was worshipped as a karban, that tells me that it's only prohibited to be a karban. But if you would want to eat it, there would be no problem. What are you allowed to redeem?
Sorry.
An animal that was worshipped, you're allowed to eat. Why? How do you know that? Because I wouldn't need the pasuk to tell me that it was prohibited if you weren't allowed to eat it. The only thing you're allowed to bring as a karban are things that you're allowed to eat. If you're not, what's mutter beficha, what you're allowed to eat, you can bring to Hashem. If you're not allowed to eat it, you can't bring it. But now it says that you can't bring up an animal that was worshipped. So obviously I'm allowed to eat it, otherwise I wouldn't have needed the pasuk to tell me that. So now I have an animal doesn't become prohibited when it's the animal's not attached to the ground. So you see that the deciding factor is not that it's attached to the ground. So therefore, the fact that it was a mountain, even if that makes it permissible, there's no human intervention. Even if it was separated, as I see from an animal which is separated, it's still permissible. Umar says, 1 second, you're comparing it to an animal. But that has life in it. That has nothing to do with being separated. That's permissible because it's alive. It says, well, har yechiach, but the mountain is not alive, and the mountain is permissible. So you have to look for the common denominator. What's the common factor? The chaser adin. Now this is going to go back and forth. The strength of this is not the strength of that. The strength of this is not the strength of that. This one is alive, but this one has no human intervention. And right, but this one is attached. So each one is going to have a problem. So that's the common factors, that they don't have human intervention. Of course, anything that doesn't have human intervention is permissible. The Gemara says, 1 second. Okay. But both of these items, that they have a common factor, no human intervention, they also have a common factor that they're in the same form that they were when they were created. As opposed to this boulder that's just been cracked off the mountain, it's in a different form than the way it was created. We're going to learn it from an animal that has a blemish. The animal that has a blemish, even though it was worshipped, still is not prohibited. So too, this boulder that now has a blemish, let's say, it's changed from the way it was created, and it still is permissible. We can learn it from a tree that was dried out, that the tree doesn't become prohibited. Well, this would only fit with those that don't hold us. This would only fit with the opinions that hold that a tree that was later worshipped doesn't become prohibited, right? According to that opinion, so even though the tree dried out, but it's still not prohibited. When the one that says that it's prohibited, he says that's why I have a verse that says that it should be disgusting to you. Even though logically you should be able to say that it's permissible, you shouldn't bring it into being permissible. I think we should leave it over here. Right? You should not derive that halacha. Okay, let's leave it over here. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day.